All right, thank you. I'll be the Grinch today. So we had some communication before and we'll have the panel discussion afterwards. And if you all agree that everything is fine, that would be a very boring discussion. So I'll be the Grinch. My career is serial employment, and most people now would know me as the founder of the Tokyo FinTech Association, the Tokyo FinTech Meetup. It's a group of about 4,000 people. And for the last 2 years, I've been writing a weekly newsletter on LinkedIn, the Japan FinTech Observer, that has 12,500 subscribers and a few thousand more on other platforms. I do play a little bit in the startup ecosystem. For the last 7 years now, we've been working on a lifetime income solution called Team. And given that this is an impact summit, that's something we could talk about at length as well. We're hopefully going to join in the US under an IRA wrapper later this year. And I'm an angel investor. I don't do this by myself. I'm part of Angel School, Singapore-based Angel Syndicate with about 1,300 members. So that's enough about me. Let's talk about startups in Japan. And typically what we do is we sit down, we get all excited, and we talk about how great the opportunity for startups is in Japan. And after 3 hours, somebody is coming up with a question: what about taxes? And then everything stops. So the intersection of death and taxes, of course, is inheritance taxes. And the scheme that we're working under is still the one that was set up by the Americans after the Second World War to actually avoid having strong conglomerates again. So Japan is the most punitive system for inheritance taxes. That means if you're actually going out and you're building your Gehrke, you should plan to die early, because that means less inheritance taxes. Kind of defeats the purpose of the Gehrke. Get advice from a tax professional, legal professional, as to how best to incorporate. Probably not the best idea to start with the Japanese entity. So I'm the oldest on the panel, so I go back to 98. And I want to go back simply because this 5-year startup plan has the risk of ending up in the same way that global financial city Tokyo did. What brought me to Japan the first time in 1997 was the Big Bang deregulation of the capital markets, long time ago. And literally, you can still go on the FSA website today and see documents from that time that talk about, we want Tokyo to be a global financial city on par with London and New York. You go to 2017, after Gehrke became governor of Tokyo, we had the first iteration of Global Financial City Tokyo. And in 2021, Global Financial City Tokyo 2.0. And the ambition today is scaled down a bit. It's really a bit of asset management, maybe a few fintech startups. But if you look at the rankings of global financial centers, Japan has been sliding down. And the last one that I rely on came actually out a few days ago. Tokyo's ranked 23. That is in comparison to Seoul, which in 2019 was 32nd and is now ranked 10th. So the trajectory is very different. We had also J-Startups in 2017. There was the initial attempt of Meti, etc., Jetro to send startups abroad. And they sponsored companies to go to all the different conferences, right? And they got all a lot more structure in 2022 with the 5-year startup plan. The interesting thing about the startup plan is that we don't really see the updated slides anymore. Everybody's going to show you the chart up to 2022, where it was increasing. Actually, 23 and 24 it went down. So in 22 it was a little more than a 10x, going from 800 billion yen to 10 trillion yen in investments. But now it's more like we need to do a 15x in 3 years. So it's not going to happen. And some of the reasons, and to a certain extent, the data that I'm using disagrees with what Jordan said, so that's by intent. IMD has been putting out an annual survey for a very long time that ranks about 65 countries in a variety of dimensions. These three studies are an overall competitiveness, digital competitiveness, and talent. So we can take the first two together a bit, because in the end we're talking about the perception of Japan as a high-tech nation, which it's not. There's a big chasm between manufacturing and anything that has to do with hardware and the software and the services side. The productivity in the service sector in Japan is terribly low, and you might want to see this as an opportunity, of course, as an entrepreneur. But look at it from a GDP per capita perspective. Japan used to be the leading country in Asia. Right? Nowadays, GDP per capita, South Korea, Taiwan are way beyond Japan. And actually Poland is a success story in Europe. They're going to cross over what Japan achieves next year. So out of 65 countries, competitiveness 38, digital 31, software really sucks, in Japan. And also a big reason for that is that, and that's certainly true in the financial sector, but also in many other industries, the companies don't own the technology. Right? They use system integrators, Fujitsu and Data Hitachi, to run the technology. And it's like outsourcing your brain. If we believe that every company today is a technology company, you need to make a decision on which part of the technology you own and which one you don't own. But it can't be completely outsourced. On the talent side, right, two things. One is, in the data, the universities don't produce the talent that the companies need. And that's very clear when you look at the PISA study, like famous study for 15-year-olds. Japan still ranks fairly high among the typical leading clusters there: Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, mainland China. And so something happens in between 15 years old and when you go into the workforce, where this number comes from. That's clearly the university. So there's a problem that needs to be fixed, and there's actually quite a few items in the 5-year startup plan that deal with the university side of things. So that's necessary. As Jordan said, the Japanese government is really obsessed with Silicon Valley. And if you take that into the context of what I said before, that Japan is really not that good at software, more at hardware, it's the old question: do you play to your strengths, or do you try to address your weaknesses? And there's certainly lots of things we can learn from Silicon Valley. This abundance growth mindset is certainly one. It's also the case that the things that have come out of Silicon Valley over the last decade, or maybe even only the last 6 years, have proven as maybe not that great for society, right? When Facebook came out, cool, we could connect with our friends, etc. That actually drives society into a state of extremism and influences elections, etc., that we didn't foresee. So Peter Thiel actually said it properly, and I think you see it this week, you see it yesterday. AI is a great thing. Generative AI is a fantastic invention. So let's use it to cure cancer, right? And what you actually saw yesterday was everybody taking a family photo and creating it in Ghibli style. That doesn't take humanity forward. And if we're here at an Impact Summit, we should talk about how do we use technology to take things forward. So the argument here is, and many people won't like it, if you look at Japan and you look at Japan historically in terms of holistic systems engineering, the role model is actually not Silicon Valley, not the Silicon Valley that we have today. It is Shenzhen, right? Because there you get your drones, you get your autonomous driving, you get surveillance cameras, etc., face recognition, best technology in the world. Japan is at a stage where, even on the hardware side, and Richard Katz, the economist, would argue that Japan does components well. Right? So if you take an iPhone, you take other things on the computer chip side, etc., microprocessors. Japan does certain things very well, the niche world beating, but they also don't have the skills anymore to put the whole system together. Right? So if you need to integrate 300 things, which like used to be a car, the next generation of cars, like we don't have EVs here, not competitive, the same way Europe is not competitive. There's lots to do. And so let's think about what we actually would like to have. And this slide would have looked very different 5 or 6 months ago. But arguably, there's 3 sectors that we need innovation from a Japan perspective. One is defense. I don't need to explain that, I think. And our friends in Ukraine have shown us that you can do very lean innovation and you create like $50,000 drones. You don't need to buy the 435 fighter jets. The other two, the next item is always surprising for people. Japan is absolutely not self-sufficient as far as food is concerned. And only over the last few weeks I've read the contrary in like some polls. So people really don't know. Japan is 38% self-sufficient on a calorie basis and 58% on a production value basis. So I don't know how much food we're stacking at home, but if we had earthquakes frequently, but certainly if we had any military tension in the APEC region, 38% self-sufficiency won't take us that far. That's an issue. Last one is energy. 15% self-sufficiency. So, right, classic 2 options, either you dial up nuclear energy again, or secondly, you do renewables. I close with 2 smart people who you hear from quite often. And again, it's very similar. Right? John and I looking at the same data, these 2 guys look at the same data. The conclusions are very different. And you might agree we are at an inflection point. The question is, are we going up or are we going down from here? And right, if you know the answer to that, you probably wouldn't be sitting here, you'd be doing something else. I've actually used these slides in my forecast for 2023. So Mr. Cole said that because we've got scarcity of labor force and the people that also coming out of university now getting paid more, there's actually this new middle class that's developing so much better off than the prior generations. And I've also taken this because Gehrke typically doesn't put a time frame on what he says. It's one of the rare cases where he actually does. So if you take 3 years from the end of 22, by the end of this year, we won't have any middle class. And in all likelihood, by the end of 27, neither. The reason is that we have seen wages increasing, but prices increasing even more. So the real wages have been down over the last 2 years, so despite inflation. So the middle class got screwed, right? Nothing better developing. And last, Shirakawa-san, right? It's easy to debate things and agree on a solution. The question in Japan is, will it actually happen? Will you have people execute on it? And right, the 5-year plan, they document lots of things in there. How many of those will actually get done? So, my first question for the panel. Will it happen or will it not? So, thank you. With that, then I think we're moving over to the panel.